And here comes Milwaukee. Forbes another three. Oh, no! This is the Random Scrub Heat Podcast.
We are back right on time. I see some people say that we're late. We're live. We're right on time for another episode, the first live episode of the Random Scrub Heat Podcast. I am your host, as always, LJ Cascon. I have Hot Take Harrison with me. I have the Thunder from Down Under, who said that he wouldn't trade Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and who was the other one, George?
PJ.
And PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker was the one
It was
that
a mid-season trade. Shut up.
George said he wouldn't do that for Beal, but I think he's changed his tune. We have his second appearance, well, third technically, of the Kang Gang. We have Royal A. Shepherd, and then we have Adam Barai as well, giving us all the details, all the news that we have. Yeah, honorary member. I'm not the one to give that out. I don't give the cards. But we have Adam Barai as well to talk us through a little bit now more that's going on about Bradley Beal, possibilities of Dame Lillard, free agency, everything you guys are here to listen about. Adam's here to talk to you about. So I'm going to give it to Adam right off the rip. Any new news on Bradley Beal at all?
No, none at all. Since yesterday, nothing. But the only thing I can add is that the teams are actively talking with one another, and the scenarios are being played out within each other's front offices as we speak.
I like to hear that because we all know that in previous years, we wanted Pat Riley to shuffle the roster, and all he was doing was playing shuffleboard. So it wasn't the shuffling that we wanted going on. But I'm not I'm not going to talk about that. Well, I will talk about those. I want to know everyone's just gauging the interest here of Bradley Beal. I already talked about it with George not being so on board with it. What percentage do we think this actually gets done? Because we have been linked in the past. Obviously, you had the Kevin Durant saga last offseason. No one wants to relive that because that was an embarrassment. The Donovan Mitchell saga, we won't even get into that. Some people said they wanted him. Some people said Tyler Hero wasn't worth giving up for Donovan Mitchell. I think most sane people are in the same boat that if you can do this deal for Bradley Beal without Tyler Hero, then things are going to get extremely interesting because Washington has the no trade clause, as everyone's aware. Bradley Beal is making an ungodly amount of money, but he is significantly younger than Damian Lillard. So, with that being said, if we go around the panel right here real quick, what percentage does everyone think here that the Beal deal actually gets done, that he gets traded before the draft?
75. That's a nice round number. 75% it gets done. The only doubt I have in my mind is that there might be another team with with just pounces quicker than us. I know the last few seasons we've been kind of late to the table when it comes to a few free agents. That's the only way this deal doesn't get done. I feel like Bill wants to be here. I feel like a lot of the players want Bill here as well. There should be nothing stopping Miami getting this deal done, but you never know. You never know with the front office.
You said before the draft, so I want to say 65% before the draft, and Bradley Beal is 100% getting traded before the season starts. I'm not saying it's 100% Miami, but I think if you've listened to some of the podcasts, and Zach Lowe discussed it a bit yesterday, he's a little off on the compensation, but there's really just not a lot of teams that can take on a Bradley Beal contract of that magnitude, can put a guy into their system that would work extremely well for them offensively, a guy who can get to the paint. It's just something that Heat have not had for a while now, and it opens up the rest of the game for everyone else. So, yeah, I think Beal's getting moved before the draft. I guess it would depend, how badly the Wizards want some extra picks in this draft. So we'll just have to see.
We have a dono. We don't usually read donos because we're never live, but the nasty man, Darius Jordan, saying his namesake in his dono for $50, 50 boingos. He said, nasty man has appeared. Give me any update, Max Strus cheeks. Do you want an update on Max Strus? Or we're giving you an update as we get it, but if you want an update on Max Strus, I would say shout out to Twan. Twan's going out down to whatever the center is that they play basketball in Orlando, and he's buying a number 31 jersey. And Max Strus will continue to torture us wearing an Orlando 31 jersey, just like his predecessor did before him, one Terrence Ross. So, Royal, I want to hear from you. What percentage do you give this to getting done? And then do you think that the addition of just one Bradley Beal, where does that elevate Miami in the terms of not just the Eastern Conference, but the NBA?
So I give it about a 50-50 chance of being done. I think that decision is with Miami. whether or not they want Tyler Hero's contract to cost $27 million or whether they're just like ready for it to go or get it done before they kind of lose out on opportunity. I think adding Bradley Beal puts them probably in the conversation with the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference right now. Like the moves after that, the following moves will have more of an implication on how well-rounded this roster will be and kind of like where we'll fall in the pecking order. But I think Bradley Beal is an upgrade over Tyler Hero. So as kind of like your de facto best offensive player, he gives us an upgrade in that regard. So I think they're in a better position. But there are other things that this roster would need, even if they got Bradley Beal. But to answer the original question, I give it about a 50-50 shot. If Miami feels the need to get him early, they'll get him. If not, then they'll just wait.
Can we also talk about for a second about not only so Roy, you mentioned he's an upgrade over Hero, which is obvious, and anyone who disagrees with that, you don't know ball, which is fine. You can still.
There are a lot of them, Harry.
Yeah. I know, but it takes time, it takes repetition. I think the interesting thing is, let's say just salary wise, right? Let's say it takes a Hero and a Duncan Robinson to get Bradley Beal. That works in the if you go to the trade machine. So that Tyler Hero doesn't play in the postseason because we've now seen it for a few seasons now. So you're essentially taking Duncan Robinson, who was quite good off the bench for us, and turning him into a Bradley Beal. Could you imagine what the Heat would have done if they had Bradley Beal? They would have won the championship. Is what would have happened. So I just want to that's how you have to think about it. You can talk about the contract and obviously what that means going forward, and the risk you're taking on, paying the guy this much. But Bradley Beal's 29. He still has a few years left of his prime. He was the number 3 overall pick, so he becomes the Heat's, highest drafted player. So we can all forget about Cody Zeller for the rest of time because I didn't really like that trivia answer. And I just think when you have an opportunity to get the talent, we've talked about this for so long on the basement, on Twitter, on Heat Twitter. When you have an opportunity to give Spo talent, you have to do it. And they would be foolish if we're talking about the price being at this point, to not go all in and get that done.
Harry is exactly right too, because it's if you really think, shout out to Darius Jordan again. He's catching me off mark now because we still never read donos, but live donos, JGB, he's calling you out, man. Respect, could never outperform him. He's an adult film star. I don't know if there's validity to that, but it's what he's saying. Also, that was a typo. I want upgrades. This roster is going to have upgrades one way or the other. And then Darius just keeps on, he keeps flowing. Trade Heather and Caleb. I don't know. I want to talk to Harry about that actually, because there was a report that just came out that Indiana's looking to trade the number 7 pick for a high-level role wing player. I think Miami has a couple of those on their roster, Harry. I saw you were in the kitchen, man. You were cooking up with some things about Indiana, maybe a Caleb Martin going on. What do you think about that?
Well, I just took a tweet that Trilly had sent out. I don't think I like Caleb Martin. I don't think Caleb Martin's netting you a number 7 overall pick. I mean, if anything like that exists, you also have to jump on that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think the thing that people have to remember, and everyone gets so confused, they basically take every tweet as gospel when it's on there. There's a reason why you're hearing this information, and you have to remember, you have to ask yourself where it's coming from. So there's a reason why you're hearing the news, or I'm hearing the news, or Royal's hearing the news, or and there's a reason why it's coming out at the certain time. So, yesterday was basically the Wizards realizing that they have absolutely no leverage in this Bradley Beal thing, and they were just listing teams that he would go to. They were saying that they don't have to move him. I mean, they're scared because they're realizing that paying this guy this much and giving him a complete no trade clause basically cancels out any leverage they have. So, yeah. So I don't know about the Caleb Martin thing, to be honest. I think the Heat should probably need to keep him if they are going all in on 2 major upgrades. But again, if you have to move him to make the trade happen, then you do it because, man, the Heat will find. We talked about this. The Heat will find another Caleb Martin. They will find another Gabe Vincent. They will find another Max Strus. They will find another Duncan Robinson. And we have to stop worrying about guys that we found off the street, off other G League teams, at Publix bagging groceries because there will be other guys that fit into this role. So if you have to move those guys to get the upgrade, you do it. You don't think twice about it. You wish them well, and you wish them all the happiness in the world on their new endeavors.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Shout out to TJ. I won't be reading the rest, but yeah, shout out TJ. No, Adam, I want to go to you now.
TJ for calling Hero a real N-word.
There you go. I won't be on video saying that. So Adam, go to you now. What percentage do you think that this actually gets done before the draft?
15%. I don't see. To me, the day of the draft or the night before the draft counts as the draft because teams generally have an idea of where players are going to go, where they're going to get traded. So anytime relative to that before then is before the draft, and I don't see the Heat or the Wizards just pushing the timetable to that time. If the Heat get a deal done before the draft, I'd be surprised. But to me, it'll be like around pick 10, 12, 13, around then. And I would have the percentage go up by a lot. I'd have it at probably what George had it at around 70%, 75% during that time. And it'll only go up after that.
It's interesting, too, because Miami, traditionally, when they make their moves, they don't usually do it midday in the draft either. It's usually something either before because they plan meticulously, or they do it much after all the dust is pretty much settled. Royal, how about you read this one?
While somebody is drilling a hole in the wall behind me. Thank you. Jonathan Rumlicon with the $4.99. Don't know. He said, I think Miami should fat Kyle and Tyler for Beal. Hey, bro. Whatever. I'm with shipping out whoever. I don't think that's necessary.
Royal,
you would not be
exposed. There you go.
I got him. You would not be exposing TJ on this program. I will not have it. But yeah, you also got this done on LJ.
From our bruh, 199 and American dollars. Thank you. I don't know what I would do if we started getting some other kind of currency up here, but you get Beal or Dame, won't be pick on defense like Hero. It's true. Hero is a liability on defense. He is an isolation scorer, and he's not a phenomenal isolation scorer. You get Beal or Dame, both of them, like that. That's one of the problems that Miami's run into in the playoffs in back-to-back years now. They run out of juice on offense. They don't have someone they just give the ball to and say, hey, man, be an ISO scorer. Jimmy with his bad ankle couldn't do it. But once you actually have a healthy Jimmy, that's a different story. But then Hero's never healthy either in the playoffs. You just need an ISO scorer. They have Jamal Murray to do it on the Nuggets. Every team Miami's played, there's an ISO scorer that they have to defend. Miami has never really had an ISO scorer during the Jimmy Butler era. Closest thing might be Goran Dragic during the title or during the playoff run in 2020, where they would just give it to Goran late in the shot clock and say, hey, hit a baseline jumper. And that's what he would do. Miami does not have that luxury on the roster right now. And I think if you get one of either of them, or maybe even both, we'll get into Dame in just a little bit, then you're looking at a very, very different roster. But a shiny Adam has appeared. Darius Jordan just dropping a little baby band right there, 100. That's what we like to see. All right. Darius is putting in work. I don't know where JGB is, honestly, but I mean, I don't know. That's not my discussion to be having right now. I'm just saying, I'm not calling anybody anything. But I mean, we only see one person dropping donos in the chat right now. And it's a shiny Adam. I don't know. Adam, does that mean that you're a different color today?
I will not partake in this conversation after what happened yesterday. I know Royal has a lot of thoughts on that matter. All I will do is mute my mic and go.
Adam, I have a question for you, and I know you didn't want to discuss it too much on the spaces yesterday, but if they can't get it, like if for some reason the Beal thing doesn't develop and Dame's staying in Portland because he wants to be loyal and lose for the rest of his career, do you have any like thoughts of where the Heat turn after that, or is this kind of like put all their eggs in one of those baskets? You know, Beal being more likely based on Washington probably wanting to start over and move him.
I think right now is the canvassing stage of negotiations. You're figuring out exactly which players are available and who has the highest chance of getting traded. Obviously, the headliners being Levine, Beal, Dame. To me, it's a no-brainer to go after Beal right now and secure that with as little assets as humanly possible. I would even go as far as saying check in with Levine and Beal, whoever's cheaper. That's the one you absolutely go for and secure right now. And then the other one, if Dame isn't as high a possibility and you have until July 1st to figure that out, you start to pivot. Kyrie, OG Anunoby. You start looking at the fours that are in the market, sign-in trades, see what Brook Lopez is looking for. That sort of conversation needs to be had if you can't get Dame. But you definitely need to secure a $30+ million player by July 1st, and we all think it's Beal. So that's the one you secure right now.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up to that, Adam. Like if Washington knows that Miami could potentially go in a different direction and secure somebody like an Adam, not Adam, but I'm sorry, like a Zach LaVine, doesn't that make it more likely for them to kind of like be able to give us Bill at a cheaper price?
I honestly, I don't think it has anything to do with the players that are available on the market. That contract is horrible, and being able to offer a $30 million expiring deal and a pick or two is enough. It could be enough. If you want it done right now, you offer Tyler Hero, and Bradley Beal is being announced as a Miami Heat player tonight. And who knows, that still might be the case, but I don't think it has anything to do with what other players are on the market. In other years, sure, that might be the case, but we're still in the posturing stage where a lot of teams are going to throw out information just to throw it out. Maybe, like, I'll give you an example. The Levine information that came out a few days ago that the Bulls are contacting teams, I bet you that didn't come from anyone from the Bulls or anyone from those other teams. I bet you that came from Zach LaVine's agent, for example. This isn't just an agent of teams and agent of or just team-led conversations that are being had. These are also players that are trying to get a certain amount of information out there in order to portray a certain narrative. So we're going to have that over the next few days. OG Anunoby is going to probably be the popular name that comes up during the draft. I bet you he's the one that gets traded to Indiana. To me, that seems the most probable scenario. Pascal Siakam is going to be another one of those names that during the draft maybe gets traded. And then you're going to have those players like Zach LaVine who might want to leave, but the Bulls won't do it if they don't get the compensation required.
That was a great point bringing up Kyrie too, because reports just recirculated the other day that Miami actually did offer a package to Brooklyn for Kyrie, even though it was reported that they were interested, then they weren't interested. They wanted to give Kyle Lowry, then they said Kyle Lowry wouldn't be traded. And then people said that they just sat on their hands and they didn't offer anything for Kyrie. Now that that's resurfaced,
it was. Let's be exact, LJ. It's very important to quote the exact reporting. It was reported right after the trade deadline. Why would the Heat ever go after Kyrie Irving? That never made sense from the jump. We are reporting here that the Miami Heat never made an offer for Kyrie Irving, and that Mickey Arison slammed it down and shut it down from the start. That was the reporting.
There you go. Exactly. So now that other things are being said from other people, do you think, Adam, that if they do strike out, because, I mean, it happens sometimes. You put all your eggs in one basket. If you sit in your hands too long, Beal goes somewhere else, even though Washington doesn't really have any leverage. Dame decides to just ruin his career away in Portland. The options aren't exactly plentiful, but you do have a Kyrie, you do have a Levine to kind of fall back on. Between those two players, which one would you rather see Miami go after if Dame stays and Beal somehow finagles his way somewhere else?
Who are the options again?
Kyrie and Levine.
Ooh. Kyrie would be cheaper. Levine is the worst player. Man, that's tough, but I'm going to go Kyrie simply because it would be cheaper and he's the better player. there's a lot of question marks around Kyrie and whether the Mavs would even want to help the Heat and make a trade with the Heat, even if they have no choice. But Kyrie is a special player, and he elevates the team in a way that is very similar to Beal, in that he is a scorer and a playmaker, and it solves your point guard position for the next few years. And again, is loved by Bam. And Jimmy. Jimmy and Kyrie are actually good friends too. So I would go for Kyrie, but you mentioned striking out. If you are going to strike out, the striking out has to happen over the next 3 days. It cannot happen next week. Next week is too late. Next week you are going to end up with no one if you then realize, oh, I can't get Bradley Beal, or oh, I can't get Damian Lillard. It has to be right now. And with that,
Do you
I
think
have
the
to
deadline's
go.
that tight?
Why? You have to tell
I
me
have
why.
to go. I don't have
Why
to tell
now
you why.
Why now instead of next week though? What's the difference between now and next week?
This is when teams are figuring out what players are not available. The reporting actually just comes out maybe 2 days, 3 days, a week later. So teams are like the information, the news cycle that's happening now, teams already knew about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So we're only just finding it out now. Just because a report comes out right now does not mean that the information was circulated to the teams right now. I have to go.
Too.
Thank you for having me on the podcast. I am going to listen into the rest of the show. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we wanted to have an unstoppable force meeting and a movable object with Royal also on the show, because having to both Adam and Royal on the pod at the same time, just, it was a dream of mine personally. So I was able to see that come to fruition live for everybody on YouTube, all 230 plus people. So keep the donos coming, guys. We'll answer some of your questions here, because I want to get around to the panel as well. Some of your thoughts on what Adam said too, on the deadline being so tight, because as I've been saying on the spaces on Twitter as well, is that you're basically going to have your answer about Dame up until the draft. After the draft passes, whether or not Dame's moving, more or less. If Portland holds onto the pick, you can count on Dame being moved somewhere, whether it be Miami or not. But if Portland trades that pick, then you think that, okay, well, Dame, you know what Dame's going to do if they wind up trading the pick. I don't know what they would even get for it. People are saying that Portland might get Cat for that pick. If Dame thinks that, Dame thought that Jeremy Grant was a franchise altering pickup. So I don't know if he would think that the Cat would also fit that same narrative. But just from your guys' perspective, when are you looking to see Miami make some moves here? Because like I said earlier, they've struck out in the past and it wasn't good enough. They didn't do what they needed to do to field a competitive regular season team. We know that they pulled off a crazy run in the playoffs this year. But George, I haven't heard from you in a while. How do you feel about all the news blowing right now? Is there any specific player that hasn't been mentioned that you kind of have been looking at?
I look at what this team needs right now, and that's just a solid backup to Bam, and even size at the 4 position. I look at that, and I know it's probably a little bit off topic as well, from what we've been talking about, but the players I've seen circulate as well, in my mind, that would be good fits with Miami, the Jakob Poeltls and the Christian Woods of the world. Not too expensive, not too cheap. They do what they need to do to make it, to make this team better and good at their jobs as well. Jakob Poeltl would be the harder of the two to acquire, in my opinion. It just come out of a report as well that Christian Wood is looking to be a free agent as well. Doesn't look like the Mavs are going to match any offer or bring him back on any sort of deal or extend him any sort of deal. So, look, Christian Wood's been rumored to Miami before. It looks like a possible good fit. I'd look to see if that deal can be done on that sort of $10 to $11 million deal sort of thing if that money becomes available. And we'll get answers before the draft as well, because there's inactivity as well. And we have answers. If we take that pick, we use the pick, it comes with just as many answers as if we trade the pick away. Because if the Heat want to make sure, if the Heat want to use that pick, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of free agency, what you're looking at to do as well.
George, can you say that name again? You're talking about the guy who's on Toronto and was a former Spur. What was his name?
Poeltl.
Oh, okay, all right. I've never. It took
Never
me
heard
like.
That's his name.
Well,
It's
no,
how he says it.
You didn't think Jacob.
You're making him sound like a Norwegian troll or something. That would be like, I feel like I've heard fairy tales about Jakob Poeltl.
Jacob Poeltl. Okay,
Yeah.
you have it now?
Yeah, thank you.
Jacob Poeltl.
Thank you. I need everything Americanized. No, I was just, it really was like, who the heck is he talking about for the Heat? I've never heard of this guy in my whole life. Okay, so I think he's going to be a bit expensive. I think you make some good points about the Heat have different ways to go about this, right? There are going to be, you're going to have two sets of moves around the NBA, right? You're going to have, we talked about it a little on the spaces yesterday. You're going to have pre-draft moves, which or pre-draft or draft night moves, which essentially you're trying to fit guys into the salary cap for this past season. You have up until June 30th at 6 p.m. before the new year starts and the new salaries start and the new cap hits and you know about where the apron is, where the hard cap is, where the second tax apron now exists. A lot of these guys need to do some, we'll call it like financial reshuffling and figure out, maybe they have guys on the roster that they don't want to keep. They want to get to other teams. The draft is a good time to do it if you can get something done. For some of these guys, their contracts are going to be a bit cheaper now. And the other part would be leading up until free agency. Remember that free agency starts on June 30th at 6 p.m. There's also they do like a 5-day moratorium now where deals can be agreed upon, but nothing can be signed. So, trades can happen, deals can be done, but it's going to take a few days for either teams to figure out if they can expand trades. Like it could be a 2-team trade that expands into a 4-team trade, whether it's a sign-in trade or something else, or it could be, remember last year, not that Miami had a good offseason or it was exciting at all, but remember that they announced right away that Depot had signed like a 1-year, $11 million deal. And then a few days later, it came out that they actually give him that 2nd-year option. And while it's unfortunate for Depot that he got hurt, I think that 2nd year when he opts in is going to help the Heat. I think having some of these expiring contracts will help them get some deals done. So
we saw that Dono as well, to interrupt you real quick, Harry, is he said Spo, if you give Spo a superstar that can hit threes. Yeah, Arbor, with the 199 Dono, we appreciate you, man. A superstar that hits threes. Has Spo ever had that? LeBron wasn't a great three-point shooter. Dwayne, we all know, phenomenal player, not a great three-point shooter. Chris Bosh was decent towards the back end of his Miami tenure at hitting threes. Jimmy's not a shooter. Bam's not a three-point shooter, although George really wishes that he was.
So first of all, if you're talking about superstar three-point shooters, I would like to remind you of a man named the man with the golden arm, Wayne Ellington. He was a star on this roster. You hear me?
He was a star in Brooklyn when he played against us.
That too. But Duncan Robinson was star-esque in 2019 and 2020.
That's what I'm saying. He can turn a G League white boy into a great shooter with a revolutionary undrafted contract. If you give him talent like a Dame or a Beal or a Kyrie that can consistently shoot the clip, I don't know. He runs plays for Duncan Robinson in game 6s of the Eastern Conference Finals when he's down to ignite a comeback. He runs them in game 2 of the NBA Finals to ignite a comeback. Duncan Robinson.
I wanted to circle back around to the conversation that we were just having, though, about like kind of what else Miami could be looking towards. Like, should they strike out? I know everybody's kind of focused on us adding more size, but I'm also looking at us to add wing depth, more two-way wing depth in particular, because we're going to be losing some wing players this offseason via trade or via free agency. Like, we're losing Max. Tyler's probably going to be included in a trade. You might end up trading Duncan away too. So then you become incredibly thin behind Jimmy and Caleb on the wing. I know some people like the idea of Haywood Highsmith. I will even call him by his name after the way he performed in the NBA Finals, which was disgusting. But I know people are relying on that, but I just think you need more solid, experienced players. And so Miami should be looking to add some additional two-way wing depth in this offseason to adjust for what they're going to lose.
I think it's a good point because we saw it as well. Like you said, I mean, who knows with Gabe, really, right? Like Gabe might resign. It really depends if they get Beal and Dame. You're not getting Gabe. And that's a pie in the sky option, right? I think most likely what would happen, you get one or the other, most likely with it being Beal as it stands right now. And then you do have a little bit of money to mess around with. A player that I personally like, I don't know if the Heat are going to be linked to him, but Jackson Hayes in New Orleans is a really athletic big. He was highly drafted by New Orleans. The dude only averaged like 2 to 4 points a game this season. Like they're not using him.
Let's stay on that same roster. Herb Jones, could
I love
possibly be
her.
somebody that Miami could look at via the trade market. I mean, he's not too expensive now. I know he's probably going to be due some money really soon, but he's an amazing defender and has some chops on offense too that could possibly help this team.
And they have size. Like
They're going to want a lot
that's
for
what they need the
Jackson,
most.
for Hayes. They're going to want a lot for him.
I think they would
I
want
don't-
more for Herb Jones than they would want for Jackson Hayes. Like
I
Jackson,
agree. I mean, George, look
like
at
you said,
what
they don't
Jackson
use
Hayes is
Jackson.
putting up. Jackson
They don't
Hayes
use
is
Jackson.
not. he's
been
not
unhealthy.
doing much.
He's been unhealthy. He's been severely unhealthy for the team.
Sure, but he does give the team like a boost. I see some people in the comments saying it, but he does give the team a boost in athleticism. Like that's something that you saw that this team sorely lacked. Like Bam and Caleb, and to an extent Jimmy. But that was the limits of your athleticism on this roster. So I think if you have an opportunity to add a little more juice in that regard, then you obviously pivot towards it and try and get you some of that in the house.
That's what I love the most is front court depth, because Kevin Love is great. And I hope that they re-sign Kevin Love for a vet minimum, because his influence on the team was definitely felt during the postseason run. The players have said that it happens. No, not today. But front court is what they really, really need, because Love is going to be great to back up whatever four that you hopefully go out and get. If you only get one of Beal or Dame, you're going to have room to be able to fill out that front court a little bit. And a Jackson Hayes is great because, I mean, the dude doesn't shoot a lot, but it's like he gets boards. You're not going to be pounded down. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. If you wanted me to say something, you could have put it in. I would have said whatever. It's not whatever, but I would have said whatever you typed mostly.
He didn't donate. That's not money. It's a comment.
$1.99 isn't money? What are you talking about?
It's not money.
Not
It's
to you.
just a comment.
He's
He wrote it.
Is what he's doing.
What?
He's calling you out, Alex. Don't. If it was me, I wouldn't stand for that personally, but I'm not you. I know how petty you can be, so I'm just saying I wouldn't take that level of disrespect. However, you might. I don't know. But
talk about stars, you peasant.
So what, DeAndre Jordan, Kendall's favorite player.
And do a little dance for you.
Well, I think. Listen, I think a couple things that he'd have to work on, regardless of what they do in the star market, is, we need more depth. We always have this debate every year about depth, and what ends up happening is Spo turns chicken shit into chicken salad every year. Let's give him the chicken salad and let's see what he can make. Like let's see what he can really create. LJ, you mentioned Love is coming back. There's a reason why they gave him the biannual exception last year. They can now offer him a contract that's more than the minimum. If he's playing next season, it's in Miami. There's no doubt in my mind.
You also have Caleb that'll be back. So they're starting with a core of Love, Caleb, and Highsmith, who would essentially be three of the members of that bench.
Jimmy and Bam are back, and then that's it. So they got a third of the roster back. I think the rest is going to be very different. So I think they need that. The best thing about the postseason, obviously they came up short, but the best thing was you rehabbed some of the contracts that looked really friggin' nasty at the deadline. So, a guy that we had a lot of issues with, we got a lot of backlash for a very excellent video, that kind of used the parody of the Burger King theme song, which you can't stop singing every time you see a Burger King commercial now.
Them replaying those ads during the run as well made me even more annoyed, because they stopped playing them towards the end of the season. Like Burger King stopped, but then they revamped the shit and said, "Actually, we're going to play a new
They said
revamp."
They said it's a new Chris Haynes tweet about Beal. I'm gonna try and find it.
Okay, yeah, if we can. But yeah, so I think so. For example, I don't know if Kyle Lowry had the best postseason, but the fact that he'd come off the bench, the fact that he's now on an expiring contract. For a team that's probably looking to dump some salary. His contract's helpful. Duncan Robinson, who we were like, man, that he's a negative asset. We might have to give up a pick to get rid of that guy. A team would take a Duncan Robinson. You might even get a pick back for Duncan Robinson. That's a good contract now. Whether they use Caleb's contract or not, that's an interesting one to see if a team's going to ask for him with 1 year basically left on his deal and an option next year. So the Heat kind of went from what we would describe as they're in a lot of trouble with some of these deals to they have a lot of – okay, sorry, I can't see it. What does it say?
the Wizards have granted Bradley Beal and his representatives permission to speak with teams that the Star is interested in being traded to. And we said this. I said it in the pre-show. I don't think I've said it since we've been live, but there was a report yesterday as well that Miami is the elevated option of Bradley Beal. Like, there are other teams that are interested in Beal. There are other teams Beal is interested in, like the Kings that were reported yesterday. But neither side really has the ammo to make that work, nor is it at the height of Beal's list. Miami is elevated above the rest of those teams. So, with that being said, that now means that talks that were hypothetical before are now going to actually materialize and become actual discussions. Shout out to the best sports show on YouTube, or White. Anytime I see YT, I always think White. All right, back before I get fired. We appreciate you. We salute you. Thank you for tuning in. But with that report now with Haynes, that's extremely interesting, because that means the wheels are certainly in motion much more than we had previously thought. Like, things are chugging along. Miami is definitely having discussions as we speak, trying to formulate something that is at least beneficial to Washington, but not a complete, heist.
Well, that's what. So LJ, this is interesting, and that's why I said at the very beginning of your first question, like, Bradley Beal is 100% getting traded before the season starts. This is happening. The Wizards, usually what happens is when you go to a new GM, they're looking to start over. They didn't like a lot of the reason why there is a new GM is because they didn't like a lot of the moves of the past GM. There's an argument to be made that the Wizards are one of the worst teams in sports in terms of the moves they've made in the last few years. I think you could probably make a case. And so Beal is being moved. What they're going to try to do, and what this Haynes tweet is kind of talking about, is they're going to let Bradley Beal's agent, by the way, his agent has a pretty good relationship with the Heat. They're going to essentially let them talk to teams, and they're going to, my guess is what they'll do is they'll ask Bradley Beal to come back with 5 offers. Like, hey man, get 5 offers from teams and see what they're willing to, or maybe not offers, but like 5 places you're comfortable. And then they would go back to Bradley and his agent and say, hey, we got 5 different offers for you. We're most comfortable with X, Y, and Z. What would work best for you? And they have to do that because there's a no trade clause. Usually none of this would even happen. They would essentially take the best offer for a guy they were looking to move. So, I think Adam made a good point that if Hero was on the table, this deal would probably be done already, which just means that the Heat for now are kind of, maybe he's like their kicker in the trade, essentially. Like, they know if they put him in, it's done. And so they'll just kind of wait, and they'll just be, and that's what I'm saying. Like I said it earlier, the Heat can afford to be patient. They don't need to put all their eggs in the basket right this second. With this type of situation where the Wizards not having a ton of leverage, you probably want to just let them know, like, if we're Brad's number 1 and that's what he wants, like, come back to us before you make your decision. There's just, when you're negotiating, you want to have all these things on the table, and this is a unique situation for the Heat. So my thought is that if Beal gets moved and Dame is not looking likely, I do think Beal will end up on the Heat. I would be surprised if he goes anywhere else.
And it's extremely interesting too, is because, like the comment that I just put up said, in the event that you do that, you're going to be looking at filling out the roster with vet minimum players, a Jay Crowder, a Goran Dragic. You bring back the Bubble Guppies, you bring them back and have them run again. That'd be fun. Royal doesn't want it. Even though I honestly agree on the Jay Crowder front, because I don't have the feels for Jay Crowder that I do for Goran.
Yeah, but like, I'm about to ruin a lot of people's heart. I don't want shit to do with Goran Dragic, bro. Like, I'm good. I remember him being here. I do not have the feels. I do not have that emotional attachment to Gogi. It's cool, bro, but like, he can go. Like, I don't want him. But if that's what we could get on the market for like veterans, but I think if you put together a solid team, then you'll have vets like clamoring to come and be a part of that roster.
And you've seen this exact organization already do that during the Big 3 era, where veteran players that want a ring flock to them like white people flock to Chevrolet dealerships to get Corvettes and Camaros. Like, it's not hard to be able to cast a wide net and get in players that want that. I'm also seeing people also say that the Bucks scare them about trying to get in on a Beal deal. It doesn't scare me at all.
Well, can I just ask you, LJ, because I just also saw that too. They're saying, again, they're mentioning Heat and Bucks in that article. How is that working? The only way that salary really works is if they're trading Drew Holiday, which would make them really, really bad defensively, or not bad, but you're probably going to get worse. And if you lose Brooke or something, like you've gotten really bad defensively. I think the trade only works with a Chris Middleton sign and trade. And so your question becomes, who is paying Chris Middleton $40 million a year coming off the injuries that he's had and his age, and then giving up picks in addition to that to make that work?
It's such a lateral move for Milwaukee too, to give up Chris Middleton, who during their title run, Chris Middleton hit an insane amount of big shots, mainly in the Brooklyn series, if you guys remember, and in the finals. Chris Middleton was instrumental in that title run for Milwaukee, and he hasn't really reached anywhere close to that since, because of injuries mainly. But if you bring in Bradley Beal as opposed to that, I don't think Dante DiVincenzo, he was decent in Golden State. I've kind of had my fill of white players that don't. Really
I'm about to say, but I fuck with White Dante though. Like I fuck with
He's
White
not
Dante.
bad.
So he's not bad. I take him. They say, do you guys think Bill will pick the Bucks over the Heat?
No,
I don't think so. It's because of the way that Miami is set up. Like all these bad contracts are actually coming back to be beneficial for us, because the way that we can match salaries will be sending out players that don't have that much of an impact on our actual rotation. So we have guys like Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson that we can use to fill up salaries. If Milwaukee is sending out players, it'll be actual players that are meaningful to what they try and do, both offensively and defensively.
And the real kicker of Beal's no trade clause is this, right? He can say no to the formulation of any deal, because whatever team he's going to, he does not want that team to be gutted, like what happened in the Kevin Durant deal. Kevin Durant got traded to Phoenix. That team was gutted. They won 2 games against the eventual NBA champion Denver Nuggets because Booker went nuclear. They have no depth. Beal is aware of that, and that factors into his decision-making as well, is that he's not going to go to a team that's going to completely gut itself. And then for the Bucks, it's just a lateral move. Like I said earlier, it just doesn't make sense to me. But then people also saying, that he's with you, Royal. He thinks Gogi's washed and defensive liability. Both are 100% true. I will not argue either of those points at all. I just like seeing the real number 7 wear the number 7 in Miami.
If Goran Dragic comes back to this roster, it is purely for the vibes, bro. He will be kind of like the UD guy. Like he's just here for the locker room vibes and because everybody likes him. There's no basketball reason to have him on this roster.
Roy, you're 100% right. But my issue is you're not going to sit there and tell me how much UD impacted the team and the impact that he had on the roster when we're getting swept by the Bucks, a year after the bubble, and then tell me that we can't bring Goran back and get him a friggin' championship, man. Like, don't lie to me. Be consistent. Like, if you wanted UD on the roster and you were good wasting the roster spot, you can bring back Gogi, and I hope they bring back that Austin Burks commercial. That's the funniest commercial of all time. You buy 4 suits, you get the 5 free. I mean, they need whatever. Like, again, for the vibes, bring that guy back. Just be consistent. Like, don't tell me that UD it was doing it for you, but Goran couldn't. So
I like the comment that I just pulled up too about Brook Lopez. I've been knocking on that door for a while, but I don't. I said on the Spaces yesterday too that I like the idea of him. He's a very corny guy. He loves Disney World, so I mean that factors in to him wanting to come to Miami because he gets the Floridian pass and he gets the permanent discount. It's sick deal, by the way. But he's older too, and he just got done. I think his last contract he made $13.9 million. And he's getting older. I don't think he commands that same amount, but I would be surprised if he leaves Milwaukee because he has a really good fit. But then again, they have a new coach. They might run a different system. That's not really serendipitous to him. We don't know. I'm a fan of Brook Lopez personally because he is a perfect big next to Bam. He rebounds. He plays great interior defense to protect the rim. He let Bam roam, but I just don't see it really happening. Goran, why do you deal with Lucas?
Did you just say that he's worth less than his current contract now? You're saying that there's no way
he's old. He's not going to command more than $14 million.
That is complete bullshit, in my opinion.
You're talking about Brook Lopez?
Brook Lopez, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Brook Lopez, All-Star.
I mean, if Milwaukee wants to pay him,
he's going $20 million plus.
Brook Lopez is not getting paid $20 million. He's
no.
If he was,
I think
$14 million.
I think Brook Lopez could command something around what he makes now, but maybe on a shorter deal, maybe 1-2 year deal, $14-15 million. But I think that he's going to take a discount somewhere to put himself in the best position to possibly win a championship on his way out. He has one, and I think he's going to try and get another one. And if look, I don't think Miami will be able to offer him very much more than that minimum if they pull off a lot of these moves. But I also think if he has a chance to do something special, then he's in the rotation. I don't know how realistic adding somebody like Brook Lopez, who just came off a year like that, at the veteran minimum would be.
You're not doing it at the vet minimum. If you get Beal and that's the only big addition you make, then it's feasible that he would take a quote unquote discount to come here. It wouldn't be a vet minimum, but it wouldn't be what Georgia's saying, $17 million. I just don't see that.
If you do not think that the Sacramento Kings will come out there with a $20 million 2-year deal, you're insane. There are 3 to 4 teams right now that would pay $20 million plus for Brook Lopez in their right mind. If the Knicks, the Kings, you're telling me the Kings wouldn't do it? You're telling me that, what's the name? Golden State wouldn't go put $20 million on the table?
I don't think he's winning. I think he wants to win, and I don't think he's winning.
He will win with a 17 to $22 million deal around there easily. Let's make a little bet, LJ. If his next contract is up, do you think it's below 13 million?
I think it's below 20 is what you were saying. I'm not. He just made 13, so I don't know if it could rise or fall by 1 to 2. I'm not saying if it's over 20.
Shave your head, son. You will be shaving your head.
I will.
You and Donardo still got a bet that y'all ain't fulfilled. So
he lost. I won.
Well,
I won.
Don't make any more. I don't want to hear any more bets
not until you come. Yeah, the Pied Piper's calling, George. You better make him pay up.
Somebody got to pay up for that bet.
That ugly ass mustache has got to go. And I'm talking about now.
He's not here to defend himself.
I don't care. I do not care.
We do have some people that really want Jovic to stay, though. And I don't know. Harry, I want to ask you specifically about this. I'm glad this came up because in the event that they do make a Beal deal, do you expect Jovic to be a part of that, or do you expect him to be part of any, whether it's Beal or Dame? Do you expect him to be any part of that?
No, they'll keep Jovic if it's for Beal. That would be, in my eyes, I think I like his prospects. I think I'm holding on to him until a team says, for example, if Dame's on the block and they're like, if you give us X, Y, Z and Jovic, we're in. You have to give him up, right? But the fact that he's, I think he's over 7 feet now. He grew all year. He finally went back and graduated high school. Congratulations to him whenever that eventually happens. He gains 20 pounds of muscle. He should be a good rotation player for the Heat next year. I don't know what he's going to do right off the bat, but his game kind of fits with what the Heat need. He's a guy that could most likely play and fit very well offensively next to Bam. So, I think their initial thing would be to keep him. But again, if you're talking about upgrading the roster and they say, hey, we really like the way this kid is looking, you wish him well and you hope he has a great career. So I think they have to do that with everything, right? And the Heat are just going to be more patient than other teams. Why do you want to call up the Wizards and offer Hero right away if you know that you might be able to do it without him and you can keep him for another move, right? And the thing with, if they convince Bradley Beal, for example, if right now it really is Milwaukee and the Heat, and they're the top two, and there's really not anyone else that is close to those two. If you convince Bradley and his agent that it's the Heat, he can go back and say, he's not requesting a trade, so to speak, but it's obvious that the Wizards are ready to move him. So if the Wizards go and say, Bradley, what's the deal that you'd waive the no trade clause for? And he says, Miami, you have all the leverage in the world. And then it's simply just figuring out, the package that you're comfortable with and enough for the Wizards to not have to go back to Brad and say, we couldn't work anything out. Are you good going to Milwaukee? And yeah,
Can I just put something out there as well? The Bucks have no tradable first round picks till 2028. If the Wizards are serious about rebuilding, which thus, trading Beal thus means that they will rebuild, you've got 0 tradable first round picks till 2028. And under the common rules, the current rules, I don't even think you can trade that pick because 26, 7 are gone. Everything's gone. I'm not too sure if you can still trade 28.
So you're right, George. I think what if it's Milwaukee? My only guess was, either they have something lined up with a contender that's going after Chris Middleton, in which Washington's getting enough assets in a 3-team deal to make that work, because you can do very complicated 3-team sign-in trades, or they really are looking to move Drew after Jimmy had him contemplating retirement, and that scared them, into being like, holy crap, this guy might actually retire if he has to face Jimmy in the postseason again. And so they're thinking whatever they can get because Washington obviously wouldn't keep Drew Holiday.
No, they would trade him instantly.
Yeah, so that's my point, right? Like,
To us.
what the Bucks traded 3 picks for Drew, so maybe a team would be willing to give up 2 for a Drew Holiday. So maybe that's their thought process. Like, hey, if he wants Milwaukee and we can get 2 picks out of it and whatever Milwaukee's willing to give us, then that's good enough for us. Again, like we're saying, this is not going to be. If Bradley Beal was simply on the block with no trade issues and it was just a really nasty contract, they would have gotten significantly more. This no trade clause makes it very difficult for them because essentially.
Sorry, Harry.
No, sorry. So I think, and you've mentioned LG, but I just think it's important to understand. Like, Brad Beal could say, "I want Miami," and Miami could say, okay, here's the deal. And the Wizards can say, we agree. And they have to go to Brad Beal and say, hey, is this deal okay with you? Are the people in this deal all right with you? Are you okay going to Miami if this guy's coming back? Are you okay going, for X number of picks? I mean, they're not going to say it like that because that gives them more chances to say no. But they're going to say, does this deal satisfy your needs? Like, is this okay for you, Bradley Beal?
No Duncan Robinson. What am I going to do over there?
And Bradley Beal could easily say, no, that's a lot for Bradley Beal. That's a lot for me. I don't know if I want to go there if they're giving up all that. Why don't you trim off some of that fat? And he could literally do that. I mean, I have to believe that's probably coming from his agent more than Brad Beal himself, but they have really locked themselves into a bad place. So I think you have to feel good if that deal does get done, that it won't be for a lot, and Miami would be able to make a follow-up move. And listen, if I got to be honest with you guys, if it ends up being Milwaukee in some way and they do that, I think that makes them worse. I don't really see where.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know about worse. I just think it really is lateral. Like
if they trade Drew for Beal, that's worse. If they if they keep Drew and add Beal, that's.
I think it's
insanely
that's
good.
why. I think it's
yeah,
Drew, it's worse.
Yeah, but so I think I agree with you guys there. I'm just not. I don't want to say this, and then they pull up this clip and they say, "Look at Harrison being wrong again." But it's just like I don't understand where. Like, what team is paying for saying, okay, Chris, come here. You have to overpay for free agents. So Chris Middleton, welcome, coming off injuries. Here's $40 million a season. Cool. In addition to that, let's say they give him like a 4-year, $160 million contract. In addition to that, you're giving up picks and expiring contracts, which you could use for other moves? Like, who's doing that?
Not me.
I know a team that keeps being floated for names, and I'm starting to think they're only being floated for names because they have a ton of cap space, is the Rockets. Because why are the Rockets getting Harden and Middleton and all the guys that have been floated there? They can I think they can afford 2 maxes or something like that, or very close to it. And if you do that, you don't need to sign and trade, right? You can just sign him into salary cap space.
What I really want, I have to cut you off real quick because I am seeing a couple comments asking the same thing about Damian Lillard. And if it's feasible to get Damon Beal, I just want to answer that. Yes. Basement Barry has been very adamant on Twitter that it's very possible. You are strung in the cap like crazy. The tax bill is insane. I don't pocket watch, though. I mean, if Mickey wants to do that with his money, go ahead, Mickey. I don't care. I hope he does because Mickey really skimped during the finals run with all those towels instead of shirts. That was messed up. But I do think that it's extremely possible. I don't know if it's very likely. That's why my name is Wishful Thinker. I think I wishfully think that they could definitely pull it off, and I think that they'd want to pull that off. But then other people saying, are you okay with taking on that Beal contract? I'm way more okay with taking on that Beal contract than the Dame contract because Damian Lillard is 4 years older. Bradley Beal is 4 years younger. I'm okay with giving Beal that money and then taking on his no trade clause as well, because I saw some earlier comments asking if you're okay because the no trade clause moves to his next team. I want to ask you guys this before we close. Very last thing, because we've been going on for almost an hour now. I said we were only going to do like 30 to 40 minutes. This happens sometimes on the pod. We go a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. What do you guys think the likelihood is that we get Dame and Beal? Likelihood just 1 to 10.
4. I think that they've positioned themselves so well that it's such a big possibility that it feels right. It feels like it could happen. I'm optimistic about it, but at the same time, is Portland going to shift in that direction? You've just seen 16 reports in 16 minutes saying the Portland Trailblazers will not be trading Dame Lillard. They will not. It's positioning. It is what it is. It does not. There's no concrete guarantee that he'll still be a Portland Trailblazer. I still think that there's an agreement between his agents and the team that if a deal does come along and it's good enough, then they will take it. And you will know by the draft. If they keep the pick, then there's a good chance Dame will be traded. Just depends on where. That's really what it is. And if we keep Hero in the deal for Dame, the likelihood goes higher.
George, you're correct that if they're telling you that Beal, if they keep saying Beal's not moving anywhere, they're trying to get the price a little bit higher. They don't like the offers that they've been getting. That's the only reason you have to do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't say anything. Who cares? If you're not trading him, you're not trading him, right? You're trying to get people to call
i.e. Kevin Durant this year, i.e. Kyrie Irving this year. It happens every single year.
Donovan Mitchell last year. The Jazz banged the table. That he
remember they were going to remember the funniest thing about the Mitchell thing was they had that Jazz Spaces and that one guy, I think his name is Tony Jones, was like, "Oh yeah, they're not moving him." And it's like, and the other people were like, "Tony, he's getting traded. Like, he's definitely being." They're like, "Your source is lying to you, or you're just very gullible."
And that was with the Rudy Gobert nonsense as well,
Right. And they were like, "You're just like." Sir, you're their puppet, sir. Like that's what they didn't say that to him, but I was like, yo, this guy has no idea that he's just like being used by the team, which is fine. Some reporters don't always know when they're being used, and that's okay. To answer your question about the two of them, like, is it possible? Yes. Is it doable? Yes. Screw Ben Axelrod, idiot from Cleveland. Like, it's definitely possible to build the team around those guys.
What's up, Dan? Good to see you, my man. Happy to have you from Italy. Capiche? It does happen, though. Yeah, it was a really good run. We really, really had a fun time with it. I know some other people are a little more down on it than others, but overall, we look back on it pretty fondly.
But I think in terms of a 1 through 10, like a 1.5.
I'm a little more optimistic, honestly, not by much. I know you said 1, Harry said 4, or George said 4. People in the chat have said 0. I'm a little more optimistic. I would say 5. I'm a little less optimistic than I was in 2010 before they got Bosh and Wade and LeBron all together. Just because that was free agency. That was back when free agency was alive. Free agency's dead. You do everything through trades now. And that's how this is particularly shaping up. And it's only possible because of the finals run. Like Dan said, it was a fun run. In more ways than one. It was fun for us as fans as entertainment value, but from contract refurbishment, if you will, Kyle has value, Duncan has value. Two of those players that I just mentioned are probably going to be the catalyst in a Bradley Beal trade if it does happen. I'm thinking you probably look at Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson as well as a first. Just depending on what the other markets are asking for, whether or not it be a first or not, can then judge on how many firsts you have to include. I don't think the asking price is that high. And I don't think Beal's going to be the only player that gets traded this offseason that has you look at the value that they got back and say to yourself, that's it? There's going to be a couple players that get traded this offseason that everyone's going to kind of look at and be like, weird.
It's a pretty simple deal, don't you think, LJ? Don't you think it's a pretty simple deal?
I think it's very simple. And I think something else that's simple is the primary sponsor of the basement is Simple Health Advisors. Insurance doesn't need to be complicated. Neither does a trade for Bradley Beal. You hear that, Mickey? Email them or give them a call today and tell them that the basement sent you. Email jpugh@simplehealthadvisors.com. Give them a little ring at 321-345-7738. And now, as we say it at the end of every show, unless you guys have something else to add, stop me if you guys have anything else you want to add. I think we're good. We're going right around an hour. That seems to be the median now for us, even though we constantly say we don't want it to be. Harry, did you have something? I didn't know if you unmuted yourself.
No, I'm good. I'm sorry. I have horrible heartburn. I'm going to take care of this. But
Vegas, maybe.
And it's not from. I think you know us. You know LJ. You know George. You know me. You've heard us talk a lot. I think we're always pretty like. We try to stay in between. We don't want to get too high or too low with this stuff. We don't want to be disappointed by, lack of a move or something. But I think we'd all be very surprised if the Heat don't do something significant within the next couple weeks.
You can definitely, I honestly think everybody here that's still here in the chat, all 160 plus of you guys, we appreciate all of you. We really like you guys tuning in for our first live episode of the podcast. Next week, we're going to go back to regularly recorded stuff, unless some news breaks. But with that being said, you guys can. I'm gonna wait until he sees it.
No, that's
Harry
not how.
ate at Heart Attack Grill in Vegas.
That's not how heartburn works, Kendall. You don't have a lot of Jewish friends, obviously. It's all good.
I mean, hey, it is what it is. I think that you guys can definitely expect some news to be broken probably in the next week. In the next 7 days before the draft is when you're going to really see something happen. We've been banging that drum for the entire hour of the show. Harry's doing something with his heart. George, it's late over there for George. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, spending some time with your favorite random scrubs. As always, thank you all for tuning in, and remember to be good people. Salute. Play the video, Harry. He doesn't have it up.
I don't have it. I'm not logged in.
We don't have Justin in here either, honestly.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do the outro today. See you guys. We love you. See you later.